but I guess that Ted used that as a spoke in the wheel, and that's why Eddie has such an issue with Ted. I guess the radio edit for this single knocks out 30 seconds off the song, makes it down to 4 minutes and 10 seconds instead of 4 minutes and 40 seconds. And this is really the closest Roth and the band came to doing a ballad. It's not really a ballad the way 80s traditionally are ballads. It's more of a mid-tempo tune. But what do you make of I'll Wait, Dave?
It's a decent keyboard song.
Right.
I don't have the same love for it as you do.
Okay.
I do like hearing it live. I think it sounds really good live these days when Ed is doing his guitar with the keyboard. I do remember when we had last spoke to Noel, the topic of Michael McDonald came up because I think he had signed one of the documents that he was auctioning away.
Right.
And it was Noel's position at the time that Michael McDonald was helping with the music, not necessarily with the lyrics.
Right.
Which always ran counter to everything I had seen or heard.
Ah.
And when I was doing research for this album, I did find something where Michael McDonald was interviewed, and he said flat out he was helping with the lyrics, which is the way I always understood it. So no offense to Noel.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure Michael was helping with the lyrics at the time. And Michael McDonald said it was one of the better financial decisions he ever made.
Oh, I could imagine.
Because between the album and the single, I'm sure it bought him another house.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I do like it. It breaks it up a little bit. It's not too ballady or anything. It's still got a good pace. And again, Alex's drums, that boom, 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 boom. I mean, that is just classic Al all the way. Yeah. He's got a nice balance between acoustic drums and electronic drums. I mean, he would go all in electronic the next album. But on this one, he reins it in a little bit. You can hear it here and there, but it's not overwhelming. And it like at the end of Top Jimmy, you can hear the electronic drums a little bit. Yeah. But it doesn't take over the 5150. Right. But again, Alex keeps that train going, man.
Yep, you're right. It was a great observation you made. He is definitely the secret sauce, like you said. Now, also the next song, "Girl Gone Bad." Wow, this song is more about Eddie than it is Dave. Okay, this is a waterfall of guitar nuggets in this song that really outshines David Lee Roth's vocal performance. Something against what Roth has done on the song. It just sort of takes a back seat. And Alex is working overtime again, and this is all Eddie getting down and dirty here. And Michael Anthony has some nice undertones on this song as well. There is an incredible breakdown about 2 minutes and 55 seconds in. It's a fun one. Dave gets a little esoteric with his lyrics. Ed famously wrote this riff in the closet at his hotel room so he wouldn't wake up Valerie, his wife at the time. And he was also played a little bit of the riff at the US Festival as a sneak peek because they were recording 1984 at the time. Where do you stand on Girl Gone Bad, Dave?
Yeah, he was sneaking that in the South American tour earlier in the year.
Yeah.
That was one of the highlights. They would start with Somebody Get Me a Doctor, and then Ed and Al would start jamming. They'd do an instrumental version of this, jump into I'm So Glad. I mean, it was just a highlight of that tour and the US Festival. I love the song. It's great.
Yeah.
And everybody, you're right. Roth's got like some, I think he said esoteric. He's got some interesting lyrics going on here.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting tone to this song.
It's a different sound.
It is a different sound.
Yeah.
And, I was reading about it on vhlinks.com. And a couple of people have pointed out like that this song and the next one sonically sound a little different than the rest of the album.
Totally agree with that.
Okay,
totally
sound a little different than the rest.
Yep.
Than the rest of the album.
They're dirtier. They're like dirtier.
They are. But one person said, actually, in fact, it kind of reminds me of the 5150 sound.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So it was just that I had never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And honestly, I had never really heard the difference between the rest of the album because I'm always the last person in the room to appreciate that stuff.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't take it away from the song. You're right. Ed owns this song. And Roth's vocals are kind of subtle, kind of in the background.
Yes, yes.
You can kind of, like, to this day, I'm still trying to figure out what he's saying in certain parts.
It's hard to figure it out.
It is. Another killer album track from the band.
And the band did this live, mixed with Out of Love Again. What a hot mashup that was. That was perfect. I love that. And that you can see that on YouTube. That was on, I think, the 2012 tour maybe. But that was really good. Next song, House of Pain. Oh, this is an oldie but a goodie. This one dates back all the way to the Gene Simmons demo. And Alex pushed for this to get on this album. Now, according to Eddie, he claims that the only thing that's the same is the main riff, but the intro and the verses are different from the old version. But again, this is all about Ed, not Dave. He's overstuffing this with guitar. Like Dave said before with Girl Gone Bad, his vocals are in the background, and it's really not about Roth. Roth has had his time on this album, and he's sort of chilling out on the last two songs. It's a hot song in concert. You gotta love the breakdown here when it's like... Roth gets a little kinky in his lyrics here. There's a little intensity to the track. It's kind of a darker sound. It almost has like a Black Sabbath vibe to it a little bit. What do you make of House of Pain, Dave?
So it's the ultimate irony that the last lyrics on this album, which was Dave's last album until 2012, is, if I had it all to do, I'd keep it just the same. Gonna fix it so you never leave this house of pain.
Poetic.
Oh, the poetic irony.
That's
right.
That is right. Poetic.
I was
irony.
always a big fan of the original version of this song.
Right.
I thought it was definitely upfront in your face. And then when you and it certainly doesn't take it away from the version on this album, because it really shows you how far along they have come.
Right.
How far they are in terms of the peaks of their powers, where they say, all right, we're going to take this song, mix it up a little bit, make it even better. And you're right, Roth's lyrics are a little dark, little out there. But really, there's not that much lyrically going on. I mean, I think he only has like a couple of verses, and the rest of the song is Eddie.
Yes.
It's all Eddie for like the last part of the
Eddie
song.
show.
I mean, Roth's doing his
right.
I get that, but you know, and then it just, the outro takes you out, and that's the album. You know, the album is only like 33 minutes and change.
I know.
It's not that long.
I know.
So for everybody who cries about how short Diver Down
I know.
at 31 minutes and change, just realize that 1984 is only 2 minutes longer
exactly.
than Diver Down.
Exactly.
And it is classic all the way. Mm-hmm. You know, all killer, no filler.
That's right.
All that great stuff.
That's right.
You know, that's I was going to say that's the album in a nutshell, but we've been flapping our gums for a while.
But I have a couple things to add. Overall, 1984 was exactly what Van Halen needed at the right time and place. The Hard Rock crown was up for grabs, and Van Halen snatched it right away. After 1984, every rock band modeled themselves after Van Halen. They literally spawned an entire generation of bands. Now, there is rumor that it was Don Landy and Ed that truly produced the album, and that Ted was sort of overseeing it for contractual reasons. Who knows? I don't know. I wasn't there. Hopefully Greg's book on Ted Temple would shed some light on that. Apparently,
well, that's entirely believable, because this was the first time it was at 5150 Studios, and Ed was playing that hand on purpose with Don Landy, to the point that Don Landy had held the master tapes
Yeah.
hostage.
Oh, no. I'm going to explain that a little bit because that's a little bit, Ed clarified that a little bit. I want to note that. There is the rumor that Don held the tapes hostage, but Eddie clarified this in a Guitar World magazine in 2014, I think it was, when it was the 30th anniversary of the album. So this is what he said. So apparently, what they did was, and I get what they were doing, Ed and Don were playing a little game with Ted. Okay. Now, let's all remember, Ted was not just a record producer. Ted was an executive at Warner Brother Records. And Ted also signed Van Halen and was their producer from the beginning. So he knew how to push these guys' buttons and get them moving. And we all know that it's hard to get Van Halen to move. So, now this was such a statement, this album. This album meant everything to Eddie. And let's be honest, Van Halen is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and continues to have a monstrous legacy because this album cemented their legacy. The first album laid it down, and they had great albums after that with Two and Women and Children First and Fair Warning and Diver Down. But this one, I mean, it just created another blockbuster. It is a diamond selling plus. And this is what happened. Don and Ed were playing a little fast one on Ted. Ted would come to Ed's house at the front gate looking to pick up the master tapes. Meanwhile, Don would scoot out the back gate with the master tapes and wait in his car on the other end of the property for Ted to leave. When Ted would get to 5150, the studio where Ed was working, he would be in there, sort of turning around with knobs, doing stuff, and Ted would say, what's going on? Where are the tapes? And Ed would play dumb, not knowing what's going on. I don't know. Don has them. I have no idea. And they would do this little dance, Ed said, for like 2 weeks in order to get some extra time. And what they wanted to do was, the extra time was to kind of shape and produce the album, little nips and tucks, little last-minute edits and things here to make it perfect. And apparently, the album, like I said, was supposed to be released on New Year's Eve, but instead was released on January 9th. The album made it only as high as number 2 on the charts. And here's the reason why. Michael Jackson's Thriller was at number 1, but the Thriller was released over a year prior to that. I believe it was released like in December of like 82 or something like that. So anyway, everyone blames Ed because Ed played on Beat It, and he made that song a bigger hit and opened it up to a new audience, so they all blamed Ed because Ed was on Beat It, right? But here's the thing. Ed said that Van Halen's 1984 got extra exposure because he played on Beat It. More people sought out 1984 because of that, and then gave them a whole new audience. So there is something to be said about that. Ed also claims that the reason why 1984 never made it to number 1 was because the week that it was predicted to hit number 1, based on the sales charts, was the week that Michael Jackson burned his hair in the Pepsi commercial. If you guys are old enough, like Dave and I, to remember this, Michael Jackson was doing a Pepsi commercial, and he had they had fireworks going off, and it lit his hair, which I guess had product in it, and he ended up going to the hospital. It was a whole big thing. That caused a surge in Thriller's sales for that week, then blocking 1984 from getting its number 1. So, yes, 5150 went to number 1, but it did not have the competition of the biggest selling album of all time. And I consider Thriller the biggest selling album of all time because I do not count the Eagles' greatest hits, because that's a compilation, it's not an album. But anyway, but Eddie also says of 1984, okay, it was the biggest tour they ever did. He said they had 18 trucks of equipment, which at the time was unheard of. They had banners. They had over 2,000 lights on the stage show. A regular stage show, even a big stage show, was 700 lights. They had 2,000. And in fact, inside the Van Halen 1984 album, if you had the album and it had the sleeve, you saw all those rows of those things that look like eyes. Those are lighting rigs. And apparently that's to show the band's success to have such a big lighting rig. And according to Ed, who knows if this is true, I have to ask Noel, he says they broke even on the tour because even though they sold out everywhere, the tour was so expensive that they hardly made any money because they put it all into production. Who the hell knows?
Right, but that's believable. But you know what? Speaking of Noel, I will take Noel's side of this because when you talk about